You can start speaking.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. I think we're going to wait just a few more minutes to make sure that other people are able to log in and join us. But while we wait, I was hoping that we could test out the chat feature with kind of an informal poll. So if you could, please use the chat feature to share where you're joining us from today, which school or schools you're planning on attending, if you haven't made your decision yet, and at what stage in the admissions process you are. So have you just applied and you're waiting for decisions? Are you admitted? Are you deposited? I'd love to just get a sense of where everybody is right now. So let's take a few minutes to chat in. So I'm not seeing anything come through yet. Maybe if someone can just chat in to say, I'm here and I can hear you, and the chat function is actually working. I see Abhijit has shared with us. Abhijit, are you seeing anything come through? Oh, great. Excellent. Thanks. So again, if anyone has just joined us, we're checking the chat feature and just sharing where you're joining us from today, what school you're planning to attend, and what stage in the admissions process you're in. So have you applied? Were you admitted? Have you deposited? And then we'll just hang out for another 2 or 3 minutes to allow everybody time to log in. Maybe this is also a good time to distinguish on the chat feature between a private chat and the live comments. So let's make sure we're sharing questions and comments with everyone. Okay, again, for anyone just joining us, we're going to wait about 1 more minute to get started. But in the meantime, if you can chat in where you're joining us from and which MBA programs you've applied to or maybe been accepted to already, that would be really helpful just to know what kind of audience we're speaking with. Okay, great. We've got some answers coming in. Fantastic. Number of people from India, Kellogg, great. INSEAD, fantastic. Have you been accepted or are you still waiting? Just have your application out? Great. Okay. Well, we will continue to monitor the chat. So please keep sending in those questions. I'm just going to go ahead and get started here, but I want to keep this really informal and say that this is more of a discussion. I know you probably have a lot of questions, both for me as the presenter, and I'll introduce myself in a second, and for GMAT Club. So with that, let's just get started and feel free to chat in. We'll keep an eye on that and we'll pause if we need to, but we'll also have plenty of time at the end for a discussion and questions. So thanks to Abhijit and GMAT Club again for hosting us, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. I know it's a very challenging time for many, so I really appreciate you spending some time with me and with GMAT Club. So I want to say congratulations to those of you who have been admitted to MBA programs, and also hang in there to those of you that are waiting. Hopefully you'll get your decisions pretty soon, but I know some of those deadlines have been significantly extended because of the pandemic. No doubt much of your focus over the last year or so of exploring and researching and applying and interviewing for your MBA programs has been about rankings, about test taking, academics, job outcomes. But what I want to talk to you today about is the additional components of an MBA that make up a well-rounded experience. As you know, MBA programs are a huge investment in time, energy, and resources. So we're going to discuss ways to get the most out of your experience so that you can finish your degree with a leg up in the job market, a deep network to tap into for life, soft skills to accompany your education, and a lot of really enjoyable experiences, because this isn't just about work. We're approaching this from an international student perspective today, but if you're planning on completing your degree domestically, there will still be plenty of relevant information for you as well. I'm also tackling our conversation today from the assumption that you will eventually be on campus. I know there are some questions about the pandemic and how that's going to impact online starts, or maybe your program is online for an entire semester. And we'll talk about that at the end, and kind of how US schools specifically and some international schools are also handling the pandemic. So I'm just going to pause there, take a quick look, see everything coming in. People planning to apply. Someone from Morocco, very cool. INSEAD, LBS, wonderful. Will Prodigy Finance be providing loans? Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'm going to tell you about Prodigy. I'm not going to talk too much about loans because that's not the purpose of our conversation today, but I'll give you a larger understanding of our company just because we work so closely with international students, and that kind of feeds into what we're talking about. So my name is Ryan, and I'm part of the Prodigy Finance team that works closely with our school and program administrators, so those admissions counselors that you've been working with throughout your process. Excuse me. I've been with Prodigy for about 1.5 years now, but I was actually a university administrator prior to joining Prodigy. My master's degree is in educational administration, and my background is actually in working with international students in international education. I also sent US students abroad. So I worked in a couple different positions across the University at Buffalo, Siena College, UT Austin, but my most recent and probably relevant to today's discussion was with Duke University, where I worked in the Fuqua School of Business. So maybe I can give a quick shout out to Duke if anybody is applying to Fuqua. So actually a lot of examples that I'm going to use today will be drawn from Fuqua because of that experience. And I can confirm that they offer excellent MBA programs, but I want to be clear that I'm not trying to promote that school over others. They don't pay me anymore to do that. So I'm going to take about 30 minutes to give you a quick overview again of Prodigy and our mission, really dig into making the most of your entire MBA education, not just the academic component, with a primary focus on while you're enrolled. We'll also talk a little bit about staying connected and utilizing alumni services. I'll also share some comments on what I know about MBA programs and COVID, as I've mentioned, and then I'd love to open up the discussion in which we talk about the potential of not being on campus for part of your degree, any concerns that you're having, things that you're looking forward to, and questions I might be able to help you with. So it looks like everybody's tested the chat feature and submitted some questions. And Abhijit and I will keep an eye on questions as they come in, and we'll assess if we need to pause, maybe linger on a topic for a little bit longer. Otherwise, we'll really save the bulk of the conversation for the end. So before I move on, haven't seen anything else come in, so we'll keep rolling. So quickly, who and what is Prodigy? Why are we speaking to you today? Prodigy Finance is a lender that specifically works with international graduate students across 150 different countries, so not just students coming to the US. We offer loans without requiring cosigners or collateral by addressing and investing in student potential. Our founder was himself an international student from South Africa, and he was planning to study for his MBA at INSEAD, which is why I was really excited to see some INSEAD folks on here, because that is a school that's near and dear to our hearts. He unfortunately had to defer his acceptance initially because he was unable to find funding that would travel with him. Happy ending, he was eventually able to come up with the funds and complete his MBA, making it his mission to ensure that this doesn't happen for other international students and that top talent should be able to access top programs. Sorry, I have a garbage truck in my background, so the joys of working remotely right during this time. When we began funding MBA programs, so that was actually the program we started with because of Cameron's experience. We started with MBA, and as the company has grown, we've been able to fund engineering, science, law, public health, and public policy. I saw a quick question come in. Do you expect any changes in loan repayment schedule for someone who's graduating? Yeah, that's a great question, and those are things that we can dig into in a little bit more detail. But I will say, just with probably all of the schools that you're working with and other organizations, flexibility and communication is key here. So if you're having challenges, and I would share that for everybody who's taking out loans, not just Prodigy loans, just communicate what your needs are and what you're struggling with your provider or with your school. And I can say for Prodigy, at least, we will certainly work with you to make sure that if you need extra time or you need flexibility, we can do that. Thanks for sharing in your questions. Okay, so a little bit more here. I love sharing the history of our founder and our company because it's important that our investors, our stakeholders like admissions counselors and schools, borrowers and potential customers know how deeply personal this issue is for us. Cross-border lending is a real problem that our founder, Cameron, and many staff members faced, which makes us so connected to our mission and passionate about what we do, which is to create access to education and provide students with options and opportunity. At Prodigy, we recognize that there are many reasons why a student might need to finance their education, need flexibility, independence, but regardless of the reason, Prodigy feels that funding should not be a barrier to education. And this is just a quick overview of our impact since the company was founded. We're proud to share that over 19,000 students were able to attend their dream academic program abroad with funding through Prodigy. Those 19,000 plus students came from 133 different countries. We're truly a global company serving 150 eligible nationalities, working with over 750 universities, again, primarily MBA programs for this group, and having offices across the globe. So I'm actually joining you today. I'm based in North Carolina, so that frog in my throat that you're hearing is some wonderful North Carolina allergies. While students can work with Prodigy completely online throughout the entire loan and repayment process, it's important to note that we are real people all over the world. We work closely with students in schools and try to show up physically to program orientations and resource fairs, academic competitions, admissions fairs, and often host events for borrowers like happy hours, career resource sessions, and networking opportunities. So where I am in North Carolina, I'm actually right down the road from Duke and Fuqua and UNC Kenan-Flagler, which I'm sure some of you are looking at. And then we also have North Carolina State University right down the road. So it's really important that I'm here because we have so many borrowers at those schools. So I'm always present for their orientation, welcoming them to campus. So kind of to wrap up here on Prodigy, why am I telling you all of this in a session about your MBA studies? I'm sure you're thinking that. So first and foremost, for legitimacy of the preceding information. Prodigy has been working with international students from across the globe, as I've established, for the last 12 years. We know what the main challenges and learnings are, mistakes some students make, and stories of how they've optimized their time abroad. We work closely with our supported schools and administrators to support international students' success and strive to be thought leaders and subject matter experts in the international education space. We also understand the unique experience of international students because many members of our team have been in your place. So as I said, our founder was an INSEAD student from South Africa. We work with our borrowers to help make their transition to the US and campus, US and wherever they're studying, as easy and enjoyable as possible, and help ensure that their education and time abroad is impactful and meaningful. And this is what we're going to dig into today. We offer a host of benefits to our borrowers, and by extension, all international students by being present at orientations and hosting those happy hours and other events that I've mentioned. Finally, as international students planning to study abroad, we want you to feel empowered in your decision-making, knowing that you have funding options. It doesn't have to be Prodigy. We just want you to know that you have options, especially given these uncertain times. So perhaps you didn't get the scholarship amount you needed to make your dream school reality and are therefore settling on a second or third choice. Knowing that you have an option to fund the remaining balance can allow you to make the best choice for you and your education and career goals. So if you don't yet have funding for fall 2020, please know that applications are still live. You can just head over to our website for more information, or feel free to ask me questions at the end of our session. But again, for the most part, I appreciate that not everybody here is here to learn about Prodigy, so we won't get into too many details there. Okay, just gonna pause and see what kind of questions we have coming in. Is the loan available only for international students? Yes, unfortunately. The only exception is for UK students. Because we're a company headquartered in the UK, we are able to fund British students who are studying at LBS or LSE. Yes, sorry, I'm seeing a question about ISB. I believe we do fund that school, so that is an option for you. Good questions. Going to move on here just in the interest of time, but don't worry, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So I know this is a really dense slide. I wanted to make sure, because I'll share these slides. I think maybe Abhijit can make sure on the GMAT Club website we're sharing slides so you have all this information, so don't feel the need to memorize all of this. But I think that it's just so important. This is important information. I cannot stress enough utilizing career services in your MBA program. So even if your company is sponsoring you or you're self-employed and you don't need to job search for after graduation, there are so many benefits to working with your school's Career Center, including personal and professional development and exploration and network building. So the first one here is one-on-one coaching or career coaches. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest costs worked into your tuition that students don't take advantage of. A typical career coach, especially at the executive level, can cost around $300 per session. This is a service you paid for with your tuition and should absolutely utilize, even if you don't plan on making that career change. These are trained professionals, often with MBAs of their own, who can work with you early on to do interest and strength assessments. So I don't know if you've heard of like MBTI or Strength Finder or some of these kind of career assessments, always beneficial for your professional development. They can help you explore your passions and career goals, and they can be an additional ally for you in looking out for opportunities throughout your program. So maybe you share with this coach that you have an interest in sustainability, but also interest in management. They're going to tell you about the information sessions, the club opportunities, the internships associated with those interests. So it's really great to have an additional person looking out for those opportunities for you. Resume and cover letter, So career service centers will consistently host drop-in office hours for resume and cover letter feedback in addition to larger workshops. Many will also offer peer and alumni review opportunities specifically for certain fields. So again, they might have an expert or an alumni who's working in sustainability come in and host one of these drop-in hours where you can go in and work with them, specifically tailoring your resume to that field and the type of job that you're looking for. Sounds pretty simple, but I think this can make a huge impact. Next up is information sessions and workshops. Attend what you're interested in or what you need, but don't sleep on these free offerings, which usually include snacks. Career centers usually follow a curriculum for workshops throughout the year that align with specific points in your studies. So early on will be sessions like Intro to Career Services and How to Take Advantage, where they share all of their different offerings. And then maybe second semester, you'll really focus on summer internships. And your second year will be about structuring your job search and interviewing for campus recruitment and beyond. There will also certainly be sessions on how to network and utilize alumni for references appropriately. All right, another big piece is on-campus recruitment. Hopefully this was a huge factor in your research and application process for MBA programs. Having the ability to participate in on-campus recruitment where employers come to your school for a set amount of time is a huge benefit of your program. This is a chance for you to interview in person in a condensed and fixed amount of time with all of the structure and support of the Career Center. So usually this is something where you submit your resume once and the Career Center shares that widely with the employers that you've designated. They then tell the Career Center that they're interested in you, and then you work with the Career Center to set up those interviews. So this takes a lot of strain and pressure off of you and having to do this individually after graduation. Next, we have opportunities for alumni and employer engagement. So you all know how important networking is. Even again, if you're not necessarily job searching after graduation, it is so important to build your network so you have options down the road and to continue to learn from other people in your industry. The benefits of networking extend beyond obtaining a job. Oh, sorry, I saw a question come in. And enhancing your professional partnerships. So we're just talking largely about networking. So you've got the job obtainment, professional partnerships, deepening your industry knowledge. And of course, it's always beneficial just to form some friendships while you're studying abroad. And last, we have alumni benefits. So most programs offer career services to their alumni for life. This means that if you find yourself wanting to pivot, earn a promotion, get laid off, anything that kind of comes up in your career, you can utilize coaching and resources from your alma mater. Typically, continuing education classes are offered to alumni for free or at a discounted rate. So those are really great options to take advantage of as well. That was a dense slide. Going to pause for a second, see how everyone's doing. I haven't seen any big questions come in. Great. Okay, so what else are you paying for with your tuition dollars? We're going to talk about extracurriculars here. So your tuition dollars pay for the best and brightest faculty to teach you. I'm hearing people going to INSEAD, Fuqua, big name schools, Kellogg. These are top tier faculty members. Go to optional lectures, get involved in clubs and intramurals, not just to meet other students and explore your interests, but because faculty and staff are usually advising and participating in these clubs. They and your business schools also have deep networks that attract industry and thought leaders. So I have Tim Cook listed here just because he's the Duke connection, of course. But if Michelle Obama is coming to your campus, you better go see her. Finally, all of your programs are going to offer opportunities for experiential learning, usually in the form of global business trips, but there are usually a host of opportunities at little to no additional cost. When I was working at Duke, I was the staff member assigned to support what we called the Global Academic Travel Experience, or GATE, to South Africa. And this included a 6-week course and a 2-week trip to 3 different locations within the country. 6 months later, I was interviewing with a South African company, which of course is Prodigy, because I loved that experience so much. I've now been able to go back 2 more times. So the point here is that these are life-changing experiences and opportunities. It wasn't just a personal, exciting trip for me. I decided that I wanted to be associated with South Africa. There's a good question about OPT from Noor. I think that's a great question, and I want to loop back to that maybe at the end when we open up a larger discussion about the pandemic and what that's going to look like. So great question, though. Okay, campus services. So I know there's still the potential that you might start your first semester online. I have no doubt that schools are going to find a way to continue to offer you services in one form or another. So I think for the purposes of our conversation, again, we're going to be talking about campus, but just know that this is also embedded in your tuition dollars. And this is not an exhaustive list, but more of a call out for some of the most useful campus services that should be included in your tuition or otherwise considered free. There are some huge benefits if you break down some of the costs, such as healthcare, including mental health, a gym membership, or paying to have your taxes done. Even as a staff member at Duke, I had access to not just Fuqua's libraries, but all 10 libraries across campus. I used this privilege to check out the Pimsleur language series. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, in Spanish, and I was able to learn a new language because of that access to the libraries. Business schools will have relevant books, subscriptions, and databases to not only help you with classes, but allow you to explore your interests. So take advantage of that. Anywhere you go, at any time of the day, across campus, there will always be free food. And that's kind of a funny thing, but I think that the cost actually adds up, and it does allow you to integrate with campus, socialize, and even kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So you go and watch a guest speaker like the president of United Airlines, and you have dinner. I know time is precious when you're studying for your MBA, so if you can kind of double up, you have to eat. Why not eat while listening to an amazing guest speaker? So student life, again, this is not an exhaustive list, but a few highlights to show how much is going on within and outside of your B school and academics. Attend a basketball game, go to a concert, relax on the quad, or even go golfing on campus. There are a lot of schools, and I will say specifically in North Carolina, that have one or multiple golf courses right on campus. Those are fun things to enjoy, to kind of break up that stress, to get you out of your head. And again, they're free or they're part of your tuition, so take advantage of it. I think a very important call out, and one that I mentioned, I had listed on the last slide, is the home base and resource in your school and campus's International Student Services office. You'll most likely have these resources both in your business school and at the larger university. These offices are meant to not only be a resource for visa questions, but to provide help and guides to finding housing, acclimating to your new culture and surroundings, and connecting you not only with other international students, but with domestic buddies and resources. So something I did at Duke when I was there is have international students over for Thanksgiving dinner, so they could experience this US tradition and have somewhere to go when all their peers went home for the holidays. You could also volunteer through these international office and even get paid to teach your language to local students. Any questions at this point? I haven't seen anything new come in. Just going to pause for a second. No? Okay. So business schools are full of smart, innovative, motivated, and ambitious people. Hopefully you're excited to be surrounded by like-minded peers who challenge and push you to explore your full potential. Many of the ways you can do that is by engaging in student-led initiatives such as clubs. Often involvement in groups such as finance clubs, sustainability, and entrepreneurship or consulting club means working together to bring in guest speakers, host a conference or symposium, or attend national events together. There are also leadership opportunities within a club organization, as well as class and student body leadership. These teammates and peers might also collaborate with you to compete in contests such as hackathons and case competitions, which are not only great experiences and learning opportunities, but excellent for your resume and networking. Knowing that business students want to learn as much as possible and push themselves to the max, schools integrate opportunities for further academic specializations and distinguishing. Many schools now have health sector management certificates, as well as minor tracks within the MBA degree and concentration projects similar to capstone or thesis projects. Use these as opportunities to learn more, hone your interests and specializations, and further distinguish yourself. Okay, I think it's safe to assume you'll only be earning one MBA in your lifetime and earning only one, definitely only one abroad. While you might go on to further education, it's unlikely that the experience will match what is available to you in your 1 or 2 years as an MBA student in terms of services, resources, cohort, and learning. Try to be intentional and set goals beyond your academic degree. What else is important to you? Learning about your host city and its cuisine, traveling throughout your host country, making lifelong friends and deepening that network. Whatever it is, make sure that you're carving out time to explore that. It's also really important that you take care of yourself and your mental and physical well-being. Business school is hard and very stressful. How can you take advantage of the resources we've discussed to ensure you aren't burning out or just counting down the days until it's over? So this was a really high level overview of what MBA programs have to offer. We're definitely going to get into a discussion. We can talk about more specific examples, but I just kind of want to summarize here. And maybe if you will indulge me, share a little story to drive home a point. So my husband is planning to hike the Appalachian Trail once this pandemic hopefully resolves. He's been planning for months and probably really his whole life. If you don't know what that entails, it's a 5 to 6 month hike up the US East Coast from Georgia to Maine. That means he needs to quit his job, give up luxuries such as showers and cheeseburgers, and walk for half a year through changing weather and landscapes against elements like mountains and wildlife, and carry all of his resources in a 30-pound backpack. Every single person we have told about this has said, cool, immediately followed by, what a fantastic thing to put on your resume. My husband was initially confused by these responses because he was really worried about taking time off having a negative impact on his career. What these responses reminded us is that while employers are looking at your education and your work experience, they're also looking at who you are as a person and what your activities, interests, and life experiences say about you. So doing this hike shows that he has endurance, motivation, commitment, planning and organizational skills, research abilities, and a really interesting hobby that might connect with some future colleagues. So a lot of that, and kind of the purpose of that story is not just showing that well-roundedness, but also being able to articulate that well-roundedness and all of the experiences you've had on campus into a story that you then present to employers through your cover letter, through your resume, and through the interview process. So what's the whole package? What distinguishes you or differentiates you from other MBA graduates? So to summarize here, I get it. You're attending business school to earn an academic degree. Your classroom education should be your main priority. But hopefully I've made an argument and we can continue with our discussion as to why you should take advantage of all the other features your acceptance into a top-tier MBA program has afforded you. I mean, ultimately, these schools offer them for a reason, right? It's included in your tuition for a reason, and they encourage you to participate. So I encourage you to do so. Any questions before we shift gears pretty abruptly and talk about COVID-19 a little bit? Just going to pause for a second. Okay, if not, so again, an abrupt gear shift, but certainly relevant as you consider starting your programs this summer or fall. So I can't unfortunately advise you on visas, I-20s, or other immigration needs, but I can point you to some key resources and share what my team and our students have been hearing from schools. So we've been following MBA COVID updates consistently throughout the pandemic. And so far, the key themes are extended round 4 deadlines, GMAT and GRE flexibility. So you've probably seen a lot of them are being offered from home now. Slightly altered start dates, so around 1 to 2 weeks, and the option for international students unable to make it to campus due to paperwork to begin the program online. So what this means is if you are unable to obtain your visa and documentation to make it physically to campus in the fall, most schools are allowing for an online start temporarily. Additionally, many schools are being more flexible with deferral policies. So if you're thinking about it, I highly encourage you to talk to your admissions counselor. It is so important that you communicate directly with these admissions counselors, as it might be the case that information is not public, but only communicated with accepted students. If you're unsure, your program admissions team should be your first point of contact. You should also be communicating your needs to them. Make sure you're advocating for yourself. It's a tricky and complex time, but remember everything we've just discussed about making the most of your studies. You're spending a lot of money and time embarking on this experience and have every right to ask for information, flexibility, clarity, and what you need. I'm highlighting a few resources and resource centers here, but each of them links to further information. That's why I've called out these 4 in particular, because they each house several other links to connect you with even more information. Our Prodigy Finance resource site is not just for customers, but useful for all international students, with tons of links to other external sites like emergency loan options, visa status tracking, and travel advice. Clear Admit is an MBA resource that has an excellent page tracking top 50 program changes, top 50 MBA program changes. Hopefully you're all familiar with Poets and Quants, which is an excellent site for all things MBA and business school related, but please check the article, The Latest, How Coronavirus Has Changed 2020 MBA Admissions, because that's also giving updates. Finally, NAFSA is the Association of International Educators and provides comprehensive resources, updates, and advice for international students throughout this pandemic and on a regular basis. So it's a good resource anyway, but specifically they've done a great job with pandemic updates. Okay, again, I breezed through that, but I'm happy to dig into more details and we'll share this presentation. I saw one question come in. If I apply for Prodigy loan, I want to pursue MBA. Okay, so Tejas, yes is the answer. I think what I'm understanding is that you apply and you've been given a provisional offer, but then you decide to defer. Can you come back? So it won't necessarily mean that you're guaranteed that same offer once again, but if it's the next year and not much has changed with the school that you're attending or your financial status, so maybe they offered you a scholarship that you maintained and you still have it, then you really shouldn't see a difference. So the simple answer is yes. If you've received a provisional offer and nothing extensive has changed for you in the next year or two, then you should be able to get another one. So a question about some light on MBA recruitment process and the role of networking in getting internship placement offers from your desired companies. So what I think there, maybe that on-campus recruitment piece that we briefly talked about. Yes, continue to share in questions. Yeah, so hopefully in your admissions process, you've talked to your business schools about that on-campus recruitment event. We call it, when I was at Duke, it was just OCR, so on-campus recruitment, and it was huge. It's in September. Pretty much every student participates as long as they are job searching. Excuse me. And you're exactly right. A large part of this is networking. So key are the fundamentals. So making sure your resume and your cover letter and all of your materials, that story that you're going to tell about yourself, those all need to be strong. But during on-campus recruitment, you have employers and recruiters physically coming to campus, and it's usually over the course of a week. And I'm kind of just speaking from Duke experience. It's going to vary at other campuses. But those employers are there and usually participate in mixers and happy hours and networking events. So maybe, let's say Google is there. Maybe you didn't get that initial interview with Google by just submitting your resume to the larger on-campus recruitment process, but you go to a mixer that evening and you talk to the recruiter. That is a great opportunity to then parlay that into an interview. Says, well, I'm already on campus. Let's take advantage of my time here. Send me your materials. So that's one way. I think we've seen, speaking specifically for international students, that it can be a particular challenge if your culture is not as familiar with these networking processes. If you're not comfortable, I mean, even as someone who grew up in the US, if you're just an introvert, it is hard to go up and network with people and put yourself out there like that. And that's why it's so important to work on those skills. Sometimes we talk about networking as this intrinsic or inherent ability, but it's really challenging for people. Again, even if that's something that's part of your culture, but you're just an introverted or nervous person, like you really need to practice. And these career service centers at your MBA program are going to help you. One of the things that I've seen done is the elevator pitch. I don't know if you've heard of this before, where you imagine you're in an elevator for 90 seconds and you have this short amount of time to really sell yourself to this key person that you're in the elevator with. You can translate that to a networking event, whether it's with the recruiter directly or it's with somebody who works in that company that can then pass your materials on. Honing those skills and making sure that you're comfortable and confident and you have that kind of prepackaged story to tell somebody is so important. Great question. How do you initiate your networking when you land in a different country? What is the first step and what are the critical steps? Such a great question. So that's why a lot of what we were talking about isn't just those formalized, on-campus recruitment mixer with Google. Those early stage things that you can do when you first arrive on campus is joining a club, more of those informal meeting people and kind of getting your confidence and acclimating yourself to the new culture and kind of the business language and really figuring out, again, what that story is. So everything that we talked about is helping to build that foundation. So you're getting leadership skills, you're involved in clubs, you're working with your career coach. It's helping you to shape what those formalized networking opportunities can do for you and really sharpening those skills so that when you do get to on-campus recruitment or you are in an elevator with a recruiter, you know exactly what you need to do and you feel confident about it. So the short answer to your question is get involved, meet people, figure out what your story is, what your skills are, what your interests are, what you're passionate about, and then ultimately what you're looking for, and package that. I know it sounds really challenging, package that into, what you would say to a recruiter in a networking event or a mixer. You don't have to have that all prepackaged when you arrive on campus. That's why you're taking those other steps, why you're participating in these extracurriculars so that you can get there by the time you graduate. Okay, great question on the next one. What impact do you see COVID-19 and anticipated economic slowdown will have on MBA placements in the next few years? Which sectors are likely to suffer during this phase? That's a really good question, and I wish I could give you that kind of market oversight. I think that the easier answer is what sectors are not being impacted. And right now, I think we're seeing technology. Obviously, Zoom is doing really well. Apple, Google, these companies are holding strong. So I don't, of course, want to scare anybody and say that these long-term effects are going to continue to impact finance and investment in those fields. I mean, that's the easy answer to say. Tech is fine, finance is challenging. But I think it's something that you certainly want to be mindful of. And another reason why it's so important to figure out what your skill set is and what you're interested in, further differentiate yourself, because no doubt any industry that you're going into is going to be more competitive. So while I can't give you those industry insights, I can say it's more important than ever to ensure that you are really differentiating yourselves from other graduates. Happy to take any other feedback on that question if anyone else has insights. Tom, just a quick answer to your question. Can I take a loan with Prodigy and take a loan simultaneously with another provider? The answer is maybe. We don't have a rule against that, but it's really important to us that we are a responsible lender and we don't want to over-indebt our students. So if we see that you've taken out another loan and that therefore puts you as kind of an over-indebted or overly risky investment for us, then we'll certainly take that into consideration. But generally, if you need to take out 2 loans, we appreciate that, and it's not a deal breaker. Good question. Will the process of admission change in countries as countries give more preference to their citizens due to COVID-19, or will it remain more or less the same? Manoj asked that great question. So it's a fantastic question, and I think it's really easy to assume that countries are giving more preference to their citizens. I don't think, especially for MBA programs, that is the case. MBA programs make it a huge priority that they have diverse classes. That's diversity of fields and background, and of course, of international and geographic background. I do not think that chances of international students being accepted into MBA programs is going to be impacted whatsoever. Maybe that's an overly optimistic view, but that is my sense from working at a business school and then now working very closely with business schools is international students are so important. And I think they generally look at domestic and international students as equally important and vital for the entire makeup of their programs. I understand where you're coming from, especially with the new executive order in the US. That's not going to impact students. And that is not an indication that international students are not welcome in this country. Again, speaking as a former educator working with international students, I can see how those messages are not clear, but MBA programs want and need international students. Tom, how does COVID-19 affect the loan application process? I can only speak for Prodigy, and I'll just say that it hasn't really impacted it a lot. It just more goes back to what I said about communicating your needs. We've extended some of the processes that require getting all of your materials together, maybe your admission confirmation from your school. We know that deadlines have been extended, so we can wait a little bit longer on receiving that. But as long as you're communicating back and telling us where you're at in the process and where you need more time, we can be flexible. And to answer your second question, yes, so Prodigy offers loans on cost of attendance. So that's not just tuition, it's the full cost of living. And we work with those schools to develop that based on the cost of living in the area. So usually a spouse is included in that consideration for living. I'm from an IT field and I have to do MBA. Can I go for GMAT or GRE? That's a great question. And I would say defer to the schools that you're applying to. So some will take both. I would say mostly the preference is for GMAT, but a lot are accepting GRE. I think if you're asking me for your background, what would be easier, I think some of those analytical skills are highlighted more in GMAT, but I think that's going to be something that you talk to your admissions counselor about. Good question. Can an average GMAT score get a full ride? I would love to say yes. I think, again, from my understanding of business schools and the admissions process is that it is, and this is the premise of everything I've just talked about, they are looking for well-rounded people. So yes, a standardized test score is often required and looked at, but it is definitely not the biggest standout for an applicant. They're looking at your job experience, where you're coming from, again, that story that you have to tell. What's something unique that you've done? Have you hiked the entire length of the US? So I would say if you didn't get a GMAT score that you're super happy about, really highlight all those other things that are so great about you, because standardized test scores are definitely just one tiny piece of your story. Tom, at least for, I love these questions, at least for Prodigy, again, I can only speak for Prodigy, there is no penalty for early repayment. So yes, you can start paying down some of your loan, while you're still in school. There's a grace period after you graduate if you choose to take it. But yes, you can pay as much or as little as you would like while you're still in school with no penalty. Tom, loving these questions. How does the online GMAT affect the loan application? I understand GMAT is one requirement. So we like to gather as much information as possible. Having the GMAT information is helpful, but we also appreciate that not every school requires the GMAT, as we just talked about with one of the other questions. So it is not impacting your loan decision. It's just another piece of, I would say, demographic information for us to have on hand. Should we wait for the offline GMAT if we were planning to give the exam in June, or should we go for the online mode? That is, that's something that you should speak to your admissions counselor about. So I know a lot of round 4, if we're talking about Manoj, you going in the fall, then I would talk to your admissions counselor about it and look at your schools of interest and see how long your round 4 decision deadline has been extended to. So if the deadline is maybe July 1st, then you have time, but I think it's really risky to wait and then only find out that the testing centers aren't going to open up. So I personally would lean towards better safe than sorry to just take it online, but I'm also very appreciative of the fact that it can be challenging to take it online versus that in-person format. So that's a great question to consult with your admissions team about and look at those deadlines for application and factor all of that in. Oh, you're going to Rotman, Tom. Fantastic. Yeah, please keep us posted. We work very closely with Rotman. Great school. Are you working with Imran in admissions? Oh, anyway, we can talk later. We're starting to run out of time. We have about 2 minutes left. Any other questions before we close out? Here's my information, and actually I'll briefly pop on and say hi to everybody. Sorry, I've had my camera off. Hi, there's me. I had 2 screens up and I had that frog in my throat, like I said, so I was drinking water, so I need to keep my camera off, but I'm a real person. And I'm so appreciative of everybody tuning in and chatting with me. And I'm wishing you the best. Again, I know this is such a challenging time and it's a big decision to make with all of this uncertainty, but know that Prodigy is here for you. But also I think I can speak for these top MBA programs and say they appreciate you, they appreciate the situation, they want to work with you. So advocate for yourselves, ask what you need, be assertive, and make sure, again, to some, that you are getting the most out of your money and your experience. Okay, just going to turn this off while we wrap up. If anyone needs to go, please feel free to hop off. I'm just going to see a couple of these last questions. So Jason, no, unfortunately, Prodigy only works with international students. That does apply to US citizens who are going, let's say if you wanted to study at INSEAD or a top MBA program abroad. But if you are a US citizen and you are studying in the US, then unfortunately our loans would not apply because you are eligible for financial aid in the US, which is fantastic. But again, here's my contact information. If you would like to work with Prodigy to fund your MBA program, then please feel free to reach out to us. We've got the info at Prodigy, general account for questions. ProdigyFinance.com is a great resource, again, not just for customers, but for all international students. And then ultimately, I'm happy to chat with anybody that joined us today and has questions. So thank you so much again to Abhijit and GMAT Club. Thank you all for joining us. And once more, I wish you the best of luck in your applications and the start of your MBA programs. Bye, everybody.